therapist. Hi, this is Sally Morgan, physical therapist, craniosacral therapist, and Tellington T-Touch practitioner for animals and people. And this is Tristan, who is a Corgi. And we're here today for an episode of Conversations with a Corgi. Let's just see if we can get you in the camera picture a little better, Biss. How's that? You can see his ears because he's very sleepy today. Today I'd like to talk about something that's very important to me and probably to other people as well, which is the wonderful work that dogs do helping us in our lives. And in fact, dogs often can help us at the end of our lives in profound ways. I was recently asked by a reporter to participate in an article she was doing about dogs in hospice care for humans. And I have not worked in hospice specifically, but I have been present when many, many animals, horses, dogs, and cats have passed, and rabbits, and I have also been present when humans have left their bodies. And I have one particular story that I consider a really kind of good example of some of the work that dogs do in people's lives that go uncredited and unrecognized, and the work is so profound. I have many stories of dogs helping humans that I will go over the next months of doing Conversations with a Corgi. But today, the one that stands out in my mind that I'd like to share with you is about my dog Comet and a guy named Dick who was at a nursing home. Comet has now gone on to across the Rainbow Bridge at age 15. He was a Corgi, of course. And here is a picture of Comet when he was a young man standing at the beach, handsome, good physique, big ears, stripe up his nose, an amazing dog. And here is a picture of Comet shortly before he expired, maybe, I think this was 1 year before he died. And you can see in his face wisdom and knowledge and a sweetness that we see in the faces of many senior dogs. He was an extraordinary being, and I consider myself very, very lucky to have shared time with this dog. And the lessons he taught me are endless. So at the time this story with a fellow named Dick occurred, I was recovering from having had cancer, and I needed to supplement my private practice income with some kind of work as a physical therapist. And my friend Cindy was a director of PT at a nursing home about an hour and a half from here. It was not an easy drive. And I spoke with the person in charge of all of us on the phone, the director of rehab, and took the job filling in for Cindy, who was not there on Fridays and various other days, and bringing Comet to work with me. He was licensed as a service dog and a therapy dog. This is fairly unusual because service dogs really help a specific person, and he helped me in many ways. But to be a therapy dog is to be able to be friendly and outgoing with many people. And Comet had a unique combination of these two skills. And he learned some of his skills from my Corgi, Winston. Winston taught himself how to tell when children I was seeing were going to have a seizure. And doing craniosacral work with children who have seizures, occasionally a child will have a seizure while you're working with their temporal bones, their ears, which we've talked about briefly. And it can be very alarming to the parents of that child. So Winston somehow seemed to know when the child might be approaching that point, and I had a big table where I was working, and he would crawl up on that child and lay himself across their heart and just take some deep, deep breaths. And you could feel, under my hands, the whole child's body relaxing. And no child ever had a seizure when I had Winston with me. And he managed to teach this skill to Comet. So from an early time in his life, he was a puppy, Comet knew that his job was helping people. And most dogs realize that they are here to be with us and to help us in many ways. So when I took this job at the nursing home, Comet already knew how to tell and work with people who were having seizures. And he had also done some work visiting nursing homes and people that I knew. And he had worked a little bit in an outpatient setting with me. and working with some private clients that I was seeing that had had some profound injuries in their lives and were hospitalized for a long time, and Comet had come with me to help with some of those people. So when we got to this nursing home in Great Barrington, Mass, Comet was with me, and he was really there in his capacity as a service dog more than as a therapy dog at that time. Up until then, every time I'd stepped into a nursing home, I had passed out within minutes of being in the door, just from the energy. I was unable to ground myself in these places. And this place, when I went for the interview and I spoke with my friend Cindy who worked there, it was different. It was okay there. It was on a big, giant, rocky cliff in a way. It was at the top of a steep hill, and I think that helped ground the building a little bit, and it was surrounded by big ancient pine trees. So when Comet and I arrived, we were informed about the ways that they run nursing homes in terms of rehab, which was that people were assigned a number of minutes a week, and they had to make those minutes within the 6-day period of that week, and otherwise you would lose billable minutes with them, which is, to me, and to this day, seems bizarre. Now, from another perspective, it's like we want to give them as much therapy as we possibly can in the time allotted. But that nursing home had many people in it who had profound disabilities, and some of them were really weak and not moving, and, it's pretty hard to do physical therapy with somebody who's, just staring at the wall and not interacting. However, I had my craniosacral skills to assist me, and Comet Corgi. And so when I arrived there, they gave me all the patients that people had trouble with for whatever reason. A lot of them were not talkative. A lot of them were really depressed. A lot of them were heavily medicated. And a lot of them had severe disabilities that made it almost impossible to get them out of bed. So these were the patients that I was seeing. And I had been there a short time, just going once or twice a week, when a fellow named Dick was put on our caseload. And I was told by the nurses and even the rehab director that I probably wouldn't be able to see him because he was very grumpy, he didn't want any people around him, and he had refused food, refused help, wouldn't get out of bed, wouldn't get dressed. He was just one of those really difficult patients. But I knew with cranial work that I would be able to reach him, and with Comet by my side. So, when I'm working with people in their rooms, I'm sitting for an hour doing cranial work. So I was wheeling my little stool up the hallway, onto the elevator, up to the 2nd or 3rd floor in this building where this fellow was, wheeled my stool down the hall with my dog coming behind me and my purple hair. I'm sure I was quite a sight to the nursing staff who had not met anyone like me. And I went into the room, and usually there's 2 or 3 people in these rooms, and this guy was up against the window, which was, of course, shuttered and curtained closed so that the light wasn't coming in. And he was curled up on his bed, and the first thing he said was, "Go away." And I had Comet with me, and I said, "Well, Dick, I'm from rehab, and they'd like me to work with you because apparently you have some back pain, and I have Comet with me, and if you'd like me to go away, I'll have you say hi to Comet first, and then if you still want me to leave, I'll head down the hall." And he didn't say anything. And meanwhile, Comet had pulled himself loose on his leash and trotted over to Dick's bed and jumped up with his front feet and was looking intently at Dick's face. And Dick was curled up in his blankets with his blankets over his head, just his nose and his eyes peering out a little bit. And Comet poked his nose right up in Dick's face and stared at him. And then he turned and looked at me, and I knew that meant he wanted to be on the bed. So, in some places you can do that, some places you can't. This place we certainly could. So I lifted Comet onto the bed, and he snuggled up very close to Dick and started licking him on the face. And Dick started to wake up a little. He started to interact with the dog. He got his hand out from under the blanket and started to pet Comet on the head and the shoulders and talk to him. And I went over with my stool and just got behind Dick's head and neck and put my hands under his shoulders and began to do cranial work with him. And eventually I was able to slide my stool around to the other side of the bed and put my hand on the back of his head and his sacrum and start to do some deeper work using his spinal cord, what we call the dural tube, to reach all areas of his body and mind and brain and spirit. So as I was doing this work, Comet's continuing to do his work. He's licking Dick. He is pawing at his hand with his paw, and Dick is starting to cry. And I just noticed that, Comet kept looking back at me and licking Dick. And Dick said to me, "I'm very, very sick." And I said, "I know. I heard that. How is your back?" And he said that he couldn't sleep, that he hadn't slept in weeks, and that he just needed some good night's sleep. Now, this later proved to be sort of a profound foreshadowing of what was going on with him. And I said, "What's your pain like?" And he said, "A lot of pain." And he was very weak when he said this. And I said, "Well, that's okay. You can sleep through this session and keep snuggling Comet if you want. And I'll see if I can help you get some sleep and relieve some of the pain in your back." And we didn't talk together for the rest of that session. I worked on Dick's back and shoulders, did some work on his head. Comet laid next to him, kissing him and hugging him. And I said to Dick before I left, "So have you ever had a dog?" And he said yes. He had hunting dogs. He had Springer Spaniels, I believe, and English Setters. And I said, "You must have loved them very much," which he said he did. And then he hugged Comet. And Comet didn't want to leave right away. But eventually, I was able to convince Comet that it was okay and lift him off the bed. And he actually turned again and jumped up on the bed with one paw to say goodbye to Dick. So I went downstairs and carried on my day and came back in a week on another Friday. And Dick was still there. And he was still on therapy. No one had seen him since I had because he was so grumpy. So once again, I take my stool down to the elevator, dragging Comet behind me up to the second floor. And now it's even darker in Dick's room, and he's curled up and buried under even more blankets. And once again, he says, "Go away." And I said, "It's Sally with Comet. Can we just say hi?" So Comet once again pulled himself over to Dick and asked for me to lift him onto the bed. And this time, Dick was laying on his back. And so Comet was laying on his chest with his two paws on his shoulders and his head nestled right against Dick's cheek. And I went behind the bed up to Dick's head to do some craniosacral therapy. And pretty soon, Dick said, "I slept for 3 days when you were here before." And I said, "Oh, that's good. That must have been really helpful to you. How's your back pain?" And he said, "I don't feel it anymore," which was a little puzzling. So Comet snuggled into Dick, and Dick was 93 at this point. And he started to tell me, I hadn't asked him anything, about his dogs and how much he had loved his dogs and that he had had to put them to sleep and that he had some regrets. He felt as if he might have put them to sleep too early, that maybe they had more time. And this is a decision so many of us struggle with our pets. One of the things I always ask my animals is to please go naturally so that I do not have to make that decision. And in fact, that has been the case for all of my animals, and I hope that continues to be true. Because with the beliefs I have, it just seems wrong to put them down unless they are really suffering and you can't do anything to control their pain and their suffering. In that case, I have a different opinion. But anyway, here was Dick on his bed talking about putting his dogs to sleep. And I said, "Dick, if you love them, I know you did the right thing. Everyone always knows what the right thing to do for their own dog is, regardless of what anyone else tells you." And many, many people have similar comments about how they knew, no matter what the vet said, that their dog had another month and they were not going to put him down. So while I was working with Dick's head, I got this image that he had been in a war. I had like this sense of war, loud noises and clouds, and when you do clouds of smoke and planes and boats and men yelling, and when you do craniosacral work for a long time, things like this happen. You know, it's not magic. The stuff is really coming from the person on the table, your connection with them, and I'm sure Comet's presence helped. And Dick made some comment to the effect of, I wish I could have saved them. I wish I could have saved them. I should have saved them all. And I knew then that he was no longer talking about his dogs. And I had my hands, I don't even think they were touching Dick's head at this point. They were just resting, you know, right on either side of his cranial bones while he was continuing to do what we call an emotional release, a somato-emotional release, talking to Comet. And Comet licked him on the ear and the cheek occasionally as Dick's story unfolded. And it turns out he'd been in World War II, being 93, of course, and he had been one of the first guys on Normandy Beach. And many, many, many people died, and people thought once that soldiers got through that everything would be okay. But in fact, once the soldiers survived landing on the shores, there were planes overhead, there was no one to help them, their troops were all disoriented, and people were really on their own in the countryside. They did not know where their colleagues were, and it was just a horrible, horrible, terrible time in World War II, and loss of death of humans from our country was huge, and other countries as well. So Dick's platoon, or whatever, I'm not very military, everyone that he knew pretty much died that day, except for him. And, you know, he was a young man at this time, and he tried really hard to save all of the people that he had, you know, grown to love and be close to on the trip over to Normandy. And, in fact, Dick was a Marine, and he had many feelings about his fallen comrades. He felt that he should have helped them more. He felt that, you know, he had issues with fear, being in the countryside alone, wanting to help others and hardly being able to help himself. It was an extremely, extremely traumatic, difficult time for him and for many soldiers at that time. As Dick was talking, I felt as though I could just walk out of the room and nothing would change. He was really telling his story to Comet, and Comet seemed to be really understanding what he was saying, licking Dick on occasion, snuggling with him, taking deep breaths and settling his body into Dick's chest. And I suddenly realized that, in fact, back when Dick got out of World War II, we did not diagnose people with PTSD, which is a problem because probably lots of people had it, and we rarely knew how to handle a person with PTSD at that time. So someone like Dick, who really, really struggled, came home and was institutionalized for the rest of his life. And when I had reviewed his chart earlier, I had seen that he was on a lot of drugs for schizophrenia. And as his story was unfolding, I realized that, in fact, Dick, who probably had PTSD, had been treated for schizophrenia with some of the early drugs, which really damage people's brains and personalities in irreparable ways, and institutionalized for his whole life. And so he was really not just a victim at the time of the war, but he had been victimized his entire life, being treated with drugs he didn't need, no one understanding what had happened to him. He was not very vocal, he did not talk a lot, so he had no way to tell people what he really needed. And he just closed into himself and thought about his dogs. And so when Comet was there, that provided him with the perfect opportunity to tell his story to somebody who would listen, who would understand, who would not interrupt him, who would give him all the time he needed, and who could really hear him in an unconditional experience of love, which is what Comet did for Dick that day. And as I said, I was standing there, I didn't say anything for an hour and a half. And Dick finally, at the end of his story, was snuggling close to Comet. Comet was snoring, and Dick nodded off to sleep. And in fact, oh, Tristan's falling again. In fact, Dick slept even after Comet and I left the room and made our way down the hall with my squeaky little stool. And he seemed, in a way, at peace that I had not seen in him in the prior time that I had met him. And Comet's role in Dick's life was really important. He needed someone to hear his story, and Comet provided that listening ear. So when I got downstairs, I tried to write up whatever I could about the therapy I had done, and I went home. And it turns out that I was filling in the next day as well. So I made the trip back out there, and I asked one of the therapists that was there that day with me, "How's Dick doing?" Well, it turns out that Dick had actually passed away that night after he had told his story to Comet. And I immediately felt that I needed to write this down because Dick's story was important, and I think he really needed someone to hear his story and to tell his story to help other people. And so I came home from work that day and immediately made some notes about my experience working with Dick and Comet. And I know that Comet's presence really impacted this fellow in a strong way. You know, he was able to feel the dogs that he used to love. And I know that when he died in his dreams, he was thinking about a place without institutions or drugs, but instead he was thinking of pleasant fields, walking with his dogs in peace, admiring nature, and feeling calm in his body that he had not felt in 60 years. So I am really grateful to Comet for being able to help Dick find the freedom he needed to pass on at age 93. And many people have stories like this of their dogs being with someone and, you know, helping them in many ways. And in fact, at some point I will put those stories together in a book. I have many stories about animals helping humans and other animals, including many stories of Comet in my book, Dances of the Heart, Connecting with Animals, which is here. It's backwards, of course. And you can find that on Amazon. And so, you know, I felt that Dick and I and Comet had crossed each other's lives for really profound reasons. And I am grateful to Dick for having shared that experience with me and with Comet. And I felt like my time working at that place was fairly short. I think I only worked there 4 months or so. And not just Dick, other people in that place had stories to tell that no one had listened to, even their family members. And some of them were like Dick. They weren't articulate. They couldn't tell people their stories. But he was so relaxed and peaceful when he was with Comet, and he was finally able, with Comet's help, to get the sleep that he had desperately searched for over 60 years. And so I would like to just take a moment today and do a heart hug or two to thank Comet for the work he did with me in our time together on this earth. He made many wonderful contributions to people's lives. So cross your hands on your heart, and you're going to take a deep breath in and make a circle and a quarter, and just close your eyes and think for a moment about an animal you love who might be here or might not be here. And I'd like to do another heart hug just to thank all of the animals on the earth for their presence in our lives and for the many, many lessons they have for us. It would not be the place it is without the animals that share our lives every day in our house, the birds in our yards, the bunnies in the yard, you know, the animals in Asia that I don't see, but I feel their presence, and many of us do. We have certain animals we're drawn to, and we feel them in our lives, even if we don't see them or touch them. So let's do another heart hug, inhaling and then exhaling as you come around the circle and a quarter with your hands on your heart. So we finally have a little sunshine today. It is very wet and slushy with the snow from yesterday. And Tristan and I are going to try to take a little walk later today. He was playing squeakies last night and he injured his shoulder, but Traumelin, some work on his shoulder, seems to have recovered him enough that he will enjoy his walk today. So wherever you are, please enjoy the day with your dog, and also take some time just to quietly think and reflect about a dog that has made an impact on your life, and do some heart hugs of appreciation, gratitude, and love for all of the animals that have been in your life and that have shared special moments with you and with others. This is Sally Morgan for Conversations with a Corgi. Thanks for joining us today. Tomorrow and Wednesday, I will be at my other job in the morning very early, so we will not do Conversations with a Corgi on Monday and Wednesday. But on Tuesday at 8:25, we'll be back to talk some more about Tellington T-Touch and how you can help your dog with behavior, health, mobility, and increasing your relationship with your dog or your cat or your horse. Have a great day. Thank you.